Look, hi guys. Hi everyone. If you're not watching this, you're obviously missing our visual representation of the week in tennis.
Tennis according to mime.
Tennis according to mime. That's your cue to please watch us on YouTube because you're missing all the good stuff. You're missing the fun, the laughs, the jokes. And if you're not getting the full experience of Ground Pass, what are you doing? What are you even doing?
Are you saying you can't watch it on Spotify anymore?
You can totally watch us on Spotify still, which is good for all of you Spotify listeners. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Ground Pass. Nick and I, your favorite, funny, lighthearted tennis lovers, are back to entertain you. We
And
don't
show you
take
round
this
the tennis.
seriously, folks.
Anastasia, I never took this seriously. I hate to break it to you.
We always keep it light over here. Nick, how has your week been? We actually recorded already this week. We did our Meet the Professionals episode, which is coming soon. We will tease the guest when the time comes, but it was a fun recording.
It was definitely a fun recording. I learned a lot. Definitely learned a lot. It always seems to be stuff from towards the end of our interviews that always stick with me, but I'd say you do want to stick around to the end of the episode because there's definitely a couple of anecdotes that our guest gave that have stuck with me through the last couple of days.
Yeah, it was a really fun one. But other than that, how did your week go?
I mean, I'm glad I got to watch some tennis, not a lot, but there's been enough of it to entertain me. Other than that, I've just spent most of my week being a nerd because that's what I do in my spare time.
Same. I got a new camera that I don't know how to use. So I've been watching a lot of YouTube tutorial videos to try and figure out the settings and, because I'm trying to learn how to take like manual, not just like automatic, like put the camera on auto. So I'm learning all the manual settings and all of that. So that's been fun.
You learn
And
how to
just
use the
like
camera
you.
properly.
Yeah, exactly.
I got a new camera as well, but very
Ooh.
different kind of camera. Don't know if anyone's noticed so far that you can actually read what's on my bookshelves. Again, if you watch the video, yeah, I actually have a decent camera now for webcam stuff, and so far seems to be working. But yes, if anyone has any questions about what on earth it is that I read, feel free to ask.
Exactly. You read a lot, so much so that you had to get another bookshelf, Nick.
I did, yes. Like, you also change in the background. I now have two bookcases behind me when I'm recording because I genuinely had books that didn't have a home and I needed some more space. So that's what I did. And it's going well so far, I think. The good news is now I have room to rescue some more books.
More books. I suggested you put like a tennis ball or something on one of the shelves. So we'll see if that shows up in one of our episodes. Don't go get it now. Later.
No, I'm not going to do that. I've just been sat here thinking, oh yeah, I should have done that before we started recording. Oh well.
Oh well, next time. I too did not watch a lot of tennis. I've kind of been trying to take a break a little bit. The one thing I did watch though was the Carlos Alcaraz documentary.
Yes.
Yes,
Right.
that came out.
Let's do a bit of a preview on that then. So what are your thoughts, Anastasia, on that documentary?
I think it was very interesting insight into, you know what it is? You watch it and then you really do remember he's only 21 years old. Like he is a child. He is so young.
He's 22 next week.
22 next week, but he's so young still. And I think that documentary really brought that out. He just wants to have fun. He just wants to do what 21-year-olds do. And he just happens to be a phenomenal four-time Grand Slam winning tennis player. So it really did show that duality a little bit and how he tries to manage that duality and the adults around him that try and help him get there. I love the part because someone you don't hear about or see much on tour or interviewed is his mom. So it was so nice to like actually hear from her and how her concerns are just the happiness of her child, obviously. Like she could care less how well he did in tennis, which was really, really cool to see.
Yeah, and that's something that's interesting because they obviously did the Naomi Osaka documentary a couple of years ago now, and I think something that seems to stand out from that and this is the main takeaways. You find out a little bit more about their families and their home life as much as they will allow to be filmed.
Yeah.
But I think that is definitely the kind of the takeaway from it. I mean, in terms of like, is there anything that like, yeah, you're saying that like about Alcaraz himself that we learned and in watching it?
Yeah, I think that was really the biggest thing in realizing that he might just be someone who I think people have been sort of gathering as you watch him through his career is that he might just be someone who would just rather be happy and have a good life than be a 22, 25 Grand Slam champion, which is interesting to see because sometimes you just think athletes, you're just like laser focused and you want to win all the prizes. But it seems the way he functions is the reverse of that. And I don't want to go too much into it because once you are done watching, we are going to do like an episode where we talk about the whole documentary, but I liked it a lot. I like sports documentaries in general, and this was a fun one. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
definitely think we could break it down in detail. Maybe when I've had time to watch it, maybe when other people have had a chance to watch it, and we can discuss it. But I wanted to do a spoiler-free discussion because it's still relatively fresh out. And I
Yeah.
guess my main question is, I know you're a documentaries person. Not everyone is. Would you still recommend it to anyone who maybe isn't as much of a documentaries person? And would you recommend it as a much watch for tennis fans?
Yes, totally. For both of them. Because I think sometimes people's aversion, quote unquote, to documentaries is that it's too data heavy. It's too data driven, and there's so much you're trying to absorb. But with this, it's so much fun. Like it's just fun. The cameras were allowed to go to Carlos to his house and on his vacations and things like that. So you're almost just watching like a mini story. They're also not long. I think the longest episode is 44 minutes long. So you're not spending, and there are only 3 episodes. So you're not spending hours, on a tedious documentary. And second, for tennis fans, I mean, obviously the best part of it is having a Roger or Rafa sighting, which you get so much of. And there was this, okay, I will tell you one part of it, which was when Carlos was playing the Laver Cup. He had never really met or just talked to Roger until then. Like they had practiced before at Wimbledon years ago, but he talked about how he had never really just sort of like chatted with him and just talked to him. So during the Laver Cup, during one of his practices, which at the time we all saw photos of, Roger came to say hello and to just like interact. You could just see he was a fan. He was just a tennis fan. He wasn't Carlos Alcaraz, Grand Slam winning champion, tennis player. He was just Carlos Alcaraz, the fan of Roger Federer. And it was the cutest thing. It was, his team was like, he's coming. He was like, oh, you're just like,
I've
oh
got to see
man.
this. I've got to see this now because I think that's how exactly I would be if I was about to meet Roger Federer.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, that's something to look forward to then from it. I think just on a kind of a wider point off the back of that, because it's something that I think we may have talked a bit about on Ground Pass before. Like we tend to like support the players just for being players and everything else like that. What do you make of that mentality that Carlos seems to have based on this documentary? That he's here to have fun, he's here to enjoy life, he's here to be in tennis because he loves it, and he's not here to win. Because I can imagine immediately, and I haven't seen much. I haven't seen any online reaction to it really,
Mm-hmm.
but I can imagine the reaction of some people would be that that's a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
really go into the sort of that side of things when discussing the pod anyway, but maybe you can give your thoughts on that in your answers to why we don't discuss that kind of thing.
Well, because and I have actually seen some of that reaction online, and I think it's actually really refreshing in just the human element of it that he is so, because even in any walk of life. So, for example, if you take me and when I was 20 and coming up and trying to work, I was so much of a workaholic because I was like, I have to get to this point at this time. And, you just kept going and going, and the years just kept going by and by. And for me, it wasn't until probably during COVID or after COVID where I sort of, um, flipped my mentality a little bit to what Carlos is talking about when he's 22, that it's important to, yes, succeed, win, and do all of that. But I would just rather be happy as well in life than just losing time and youth and everything to just focus on this one thing, laser focus, and then not be happy doing it, because it's tedious, it's hard. So I appreciated it of him saying it. And it's tough to talk about stuff like that on the pod, because I think what we do is like we want to help people understand the sports better and also learn about the players who are in the sport. But at the same time, we don't want to put our own ideas and thoughts about those players on those players. I'd rather interview a player and they tell me, what it was like in that match or how they feel or what they should do in their game. I'm like, I don't play tennis. I can't tell you what to do with your game and how to play it. I can just observe and see what's happening. So I think we try and make sure as we talk about players, it's more sort of informational, like, hey, this is this person, this is where they're from, this is what matches they're in and how they play and what we like about them. Versus trying to say, well, I really think Coco should fix her forehand. I don't know, So that's kind of how we approach it.
And most of our listeners won't know either, to be honest.
Exactly.
And so that's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about the tennis and be informational. Yeah, we'll probably say how a match went or something along those lines. But yeah, I don't think there is a right way to go about being a professional tennis player.
Yeah.
I certainly have no right to have an opinion on that because I've never tried. In fact, I have a feeling that if I did try, I would have bombed out of the first local tournament I entered. So let's put I think we'd like to have some perspective here. But I appreciate that some of the people who are listening will probably come across strong opinions online. I like the people who just want to have fun and enjoy it. And like, this is their job and this is what they get to do.
Yeah.
And we heard a little bit about that from our Meet the Professionals person, which I won't spoil anymore, but it gives us a bit of insight into what makes a lot of players tick. So we have probably gone a little bit off plan for how long we've spent on that, but I did think that it was worth having a chat about the documentary and sort of the vague points that came out of it, and then we'll just talk about what we thought about it specifically later on.
Yeah, no, totally. So yeah, if you haven't seen the documentary series, definitely check it out. It's on Netflix everywhere. Here's my one note, because more than one person contacted me and were like, oh, I don't like the documentary because of the way it sounds. Like, what is this dubbing? And I was like, wait, what are you talking about? And check your settings on Netflix. This documentary is in Spanish. Carlos Alcaraz speaks Spanish. I'm really happy they did not make him speak English for this documentary, because he definitely, you get his personality more. He's more comfortable speaking Spanish, so you get more out of it. But there is English dubbing, which I still haven't listened, and I just refuse to.
Okay, I'm going to say this now. I am going to watch this documentary in Spanish with English subtitles.
Yes.
Like that, because that's just going to sound horribly and off. And I've done it before where I've watched the dubs and it just doesn't fit. I hate how the movement of the mouth doesn't fit the words. And the same when I watch Studio Ghibli films. I watch it in Japanese with the English subtitles, because it just,
that's just the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Japanese or Spanish. But
yeah. So don't watch this, please, in the dubbed, because a lot of people are like, oh, really? And I was like, yes. So watch it in Spanish with the English subtitles. And so I think actually, Nick, we should switch up a little bit, because we spent so much time on that and I love it. I love that we talked about it. We were supposed to this week talk about tennis trophies, because the Madrid Open has this history of, and a lot of tournaments too, of just switching up their tennis trophies. So I thought, it would be really great to talk about this midweek of the Madrid Open. But I think maybe we save this topic to another time, because there has been stuff going on in Madrid that I want to talk about. And maybe for our listeners, to sort of help us prep for when we do talk about tennis trophies, if there are any tennis trophies that interest you and you would like us to talk about, send us, because there are some very unique tennis trophies on tour. There's some beautiful ones and there's some, special ones. So let us know. We will park that topic for another time, because I kind of want to talk about the chaotic Madrid Open.
Okay. Is it any more chaotic? First of all, chaotic on the men's side. The women's side, apart from today, where we lost a couple of relatively big names, has been pretty solid, apart from a couple of wobbles for people. But it's the men's side. And also, Anastasia, it's not that much more chaotic than we saw in Indian Wells or Miami, because this seems to be the world of tennis when Yannick Sinner's not playing.
Yes. Sinner, where are you?
He'll be
Are you
back. He's
coming
coming
back?
back next week, Anastasia. He'll
Yay.
be back after our mini pod.
I think maybe all the men just miss Sinner on tour. They're like, where is he? We miss him. And it's been chaotic ever since. So, yeah, let's start from the beginning because immediately we lost Carlos Alcaraz at this tournament. He suffered an injury in Barcelona during the finals, actually. So it was kind of touch and go. Like, he didn't withdraw immediately. There was like a touch and go period, but then he finally announced that he had withdrawn from Madrid. And I don't know about you, Nick, but this part of the calendar for Carlos, I've always found to be one of his toughest because and the thing about that is that he's Spanish. So there are a few very important Spanish tournaments that happen every single year that as the number one Spanish player, one of its biggest stars, it seems impossible for him to miss. And because of that, it means if he was to play every single tournament this period, he would go back to back from Monte Carlo, Barcelona, Madrid, Rome, Roland Garros, French Open. That is a lot of tennis in basically a month and a half,
More
pretty
than that, I mean, like
much.
what you've just listed there is essentially 6 consecutive weeks, week off, 2 more weeks.
Yeah.
8 out of 9 weeks you're playing. Add in Wimbledon and Queen's, because he usually plays Queen's Club in London. That's week off, so that's week 10. And 11th, then he's playing like 9 out of 11 weeks, week off, 9 out of 12. 12 out of, it's 11 out of 14 weeks once you finish Wimbledon. So that's
Yeah.
crazy. I don't know why he plays Monte Carlo. I mean, obviously he won Monte Carlo, but given historically he's not done that well there, I don't know why he plays it because it's not mandatory. But yeah, I agree. Like, and it's a tough one because obviously all the Spanish, like all his sponsors are Spanish, and his he loves playing in Spain. At his best when he's in Spain. I think he plays his
Yeah.
best tennis in Barcelona. So I think it's gutting to him that he's having to play at Madrid. I think he'd much rather that Rome and Madrid were the other way around in the calendar. And Madrid was the main warm-up, but Rome is closer in condition, so it makes sense. But yeah, maybe that's something he has to take away and sort of learn about, because yeah, that's 2 consecutive Madrids where he's been kind of disrupted by injury. And I mean, I guess the Barcelona tournament probably won't complain if all the Carlos fans descend on there because they know they're going to watch him if he's always going to be a question for Madrid. But yeah, I don't envy him being in that position, or the Spanish
Yeah.
organisers, because they basically base all their marketing around Carlos being there. I mean, Netflix has been
Right.
all over the stadiums.
The stadiums and all the umpire chairs also have the Carlos Alcaraz documentary on the side of it. Like he is the face of the tournament, so it was definitely a big deal for him to withdraw. And it's a tough situation. I don't know what the solution is because I feel like, and maybe he kind of alternates when he does Monte Carlo, but I feel like Monte Carlo is such a it's almost like Wimbledon in the sense of the historic nature of it. It doesn't count as a required tournament, but it's such, I think a lot of the players see it as this sort of like historic, beautiful, special, and unique venue and tournament that they should attend. And the fact that he's never really done well at it might have been sort of he's either not done well at it or not attended. So it's kind of like maybe he felt he had to do it, but then that just puts you between a rock and a hard place in terms of the rest of the calendar. Yeah. But yes, Carlos was not the only one to exit. He didn't play, but a few people lost first round, and it's
I mean, while we're doing
kind of
injuries, it also has to be said that like of the people we're about to list, another of them pulled out due to injury, and that was Holger Rune, the Barcelona
yeah,
champion. So both Barcelona finalists were affected by injury in the Madrid. Holger Rune lost the first set against Flavio Cobolli and then pulled out. Was it Cobolli he was playing?
yeah, yes,
Yeah, good. I knew he was playing Italian, and I was like, I'm going to say the one that I remember, and then doubted myself. Yeah, so that is something else to say. Like, that transition's also taking a toll on him. I think it's an indication of like a wider thing in terms of scheduling as a player in tennis. But I think that's probably worth putting out there that like 2 of these results, I mean, it's not even a result for Carlos, he didn't even try to play,
yeah,
are due to one factor, whereas the others are due to not necessarily performing well.
right. So that's Novak, Félix Auger-Aliassime, Arthur Fils, all out in the first round. And again, you think, is this the Sinner effect? are they just truly missing their best friend, Yannick Sinner, and they're just waiting for him to come back on tour? But no, I
That
think
probably
it's
means that
different things
that probably
for
means that
all these
Jack Draper's going
players.
to win Madrid because apparently he practiced with Sinner before Madrid started, and he is loving life. And he's basically in all his interviews with British TV going, "Sinner is so lovely, he's brilliant. It's really unfortunate what happened. I really had a good time with him." Hey, if he's the one who's had the most recent contact with Yannick Sinner, that means he's winning Madrid.
You heard it here first. Nick predicting Jack Draper winning Madrid. And he has been playing well. Jack Draper has been really having a good year. But yeah, I think also the results of all of this is we have such an interesting, and here's the thing. Okay, there are two trains of thought here. One, ATP in disarray. What's happening on the men's tour? It's so crazy. The top 10's changed, all this stuff. And for me, at the same time, I think this is just a natural point of change at the ATP. They've had the loss of three of its most prominent players over the years in terms of Roger and Rafa retiring. And Novak hasn't retired yet, but I would argue he's not the same player he was 3 or 4 years ago. So it's definitely, they're going through a change. And I think this is just the normal evolution of the tour with such a change. I would say the WTA went through the exact same thing when Ash Barty left and Serena left, and they just had to sort of figure out who the top of the game was now. I personally love it. I don't like, in general, consistency in the sense of tournament after tournament, it's the same three people winning. Believe it or not, it did get boring for me at times where it's just okay, same three people. So I actually like it. I don't know what you think about it, but I'm not on this sort of ATP in disarray bandwagon.
It's not in disarray at all. Also, let's face it, when you really think about it, it's still always about Yannick Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz because
Yeah.
and it's just well, when they're playing, when they're not around, it's a free for all, and that's the future of it. But yeah, it's a natural state of tennis, and I have no problem with there being more stories. I have no problem with there being a lot more good players than there used to be, because it's a sign that when you get the high standard of professionalism that is in the sport now. So
Yeah.
why is this a bad thing? Predictability is only interesting if you don't like surprises. If you want, or if you've picked a side and you want that side to win all the time, or at least you have an idea of then, well, they're that good, they only lose to a few people. So that is Yannick Sinner right now. It may well be Carlos Alcaraz at some point, but I don't see it's necessarily bad for the sport. I guess it's the only downside is there's too many names to learn, potentially. That's literally the only downside as well. I don't know who that is. That's someone why can't you just have the same person that I can just remember? Which is how a lot of us get into the sport, right? I got into Formula One because I remember the name Michael Schumacher over and over again. And by the way, this is when I was 7, 8, 9 years old. Mm-hmm. Tennis around about the same time. If you are sort of 6, 7-year-old Nick, who are the tennis players? The only tennis players I could name to you were Venus Williams. I didn't even know she had a sister at that point. Pete Sampras, Tim Henman, and Greg Rosetsky. Yeah. And that's because that's what all the media coverage would always show me. So it's kind of I think that's the only potential downside but I don't know who that is. Well, good news. That's why we're here, because we can tell you about who this person is. So always listen to Ground Pass before watching a tournament. And we got you covered.
And then we got you covered. Before we move over to the women's side to just talk about what's been happening there, just wanted to mention Alejandro Davidovich Fokina. He lost a very tight match, 3-set match to Alexander Zverev, pretty much just before we came on. But he's been playing so well this year. I actually wanted to just look really quickly on where he is in the race. And guys, when I say the race, just to explain a little bit. So there are two rankings, obviously just the top 10 of the world that we talk about. But there is the ranking for the race, which is a year-long ranking that decides who gets to go to the finals of either the ATP or the WTA. Yes, Nick.
So just to clarify that a little bit, the ranking is based on performance over the last 12 months. So the rankings
Yes.
currently are based on back to, as of record, like the 27th of April 2024. The race is based on performance going back to January the 1st of
Yeah.
2025. So it's year
Right.
to date as opposed to previous 12 months.
The previous 12 months, exactly. And currently, Alejandra Davidovich Fokina is 10th in the race.
Oh,
If you want to see kind of a snapshot, this is actually a really good idea. If you want to see a snapshot of who's been doing well so far in the year since January or since the beginning of the season, you want to take a look at the rankings for the race. And ADF is 10th. He has had a pretty good season so far, and it's really nice to see. He almost got the win there in the second set, I feel like, but it's Alexander Zverev. He's really great in these conditions. He was gonna be a tough out either way. But yeah, just wanted to mention him. He was the last Spaniard standing in singles, and now there are no Spaniards in the singles at the Madrid Open. Yeah.
the Madrid people are really annoyed that Carlos got injured right now.
Yes, they are.
Not with him, just with fate.
The situation. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so that was the men's side. It's still ongoing, obviously. For the women, it was I want to say a scare of a start for Iga and Coco. I feel
Yes.
like the women's matches started with a little jump scare.
Yes. Iga Swiatek had a rematch with Alex Ayala, which everyone was looking forward to. And then Ayala won the first set, doing more or less what she'd been doing in Miami to Iga. And then Iga made the second set a bit more of a battle and managed to figure out what she needed to do and did what top players do and kind of go, no, I'm just going to make you really, really hard to beat me. And then figured out how to play better by the end of the match. And that's essentially what happened there. It's just unfortunate for Alex. Iga got better as the match went on, and that is the opposite for what you want to happen when you're playing a top-ranked player.
Yeah.
Especially someone like Iga, who loves it on clay and has followed up with a really good win over Linda Noskova yesterday. And then Coco got bageled in set one against Diana Yastremska. And I can imagine that was like panic buttons for anyone who was a Coco fan at that point. Coco immediately walked in, turned the alarm off, and just got down to business by winning the second set 6-2. But it was a bit touch and go in the decider. It was a bit of a close one in the decider, 7-5 in the end. For Coco, it was a really tough match. But yeah, but they held on, and that's the thing, is that like these players, although we can say that they aren't doing their best right now, they can still win scrappy matches, and that's what makes them so good. And I think in tennis, it doesn't matter how you win, just get the win. And there's just some players who are just really, really good at winning matches. Iga Swiatek is one example. Coco Gauff is another. I mean, Arina Sabalenka's not exactly been scared in the same way, but she's lost a set to Elise Mertens, and she had a bit of a wobble in the first set against Anna Blinkova. I don't think she's looking super confident either.
Mm-hmm.
I would watch out for Mira Andreeva right now, because she's looking like she's loving being back at Madrid.
Yeah.
But that's kind of all the big picture stuff. But that's what's going on in the women's tournament. We have lost a couple of names. Jessica Pegula lost earlier today to Uchijima, who's a player I've been kind of keeping an eye on her rising up the rankings. He is Japanese and is kind of vying with Osaka for like being the number one Japanese player at the moment. So that's a good win for Uchijima. That's probably a bit of a breakthrough for her. And then Maria Sakkari just crushed Jasmine Paolini. After being pretty much nowhere for about a year, she gets back together with her old coach, Tom Hill, and looks herself again.
It's kind of crazy. She literally, up until the Madrid Open, had not won back-to-back matches. She was barely winning matches in the first round anyway. And here she is, like, looking like the old Maria Sakkari. I think I only just realized, actually, I think she's playing doubles as well with Madison Keys, which I didn't realize. But I just saw a score line come up, and it looks like they're doing well in doubles. Yeah, go Maria Sakkari. Some other players, at least one player that I noticed on the women's side who I like to follow, like to see what she's up to. Emma Raducanu came into this tournament after not doing much on clay so far. She is at the tournament. She was. She won her first match but lost the second round. She's at the tournament with Mark Pecci, who is someone who's coached her before. Apparently, the partnership is still informal, but possibility of it becoming more formal and he coming in as her coach, which would be interesting.
I'm going to clarify on that because she's actually talked about this.
Ah,
So Mark Petchey is coaching Emma when he doesn't have commentary commitments. So he's working
ooh,
with her when he's not doing commentary, which he's still doing with Tennis Channel, and that's
yeah,
still his number one priority. So it's literally just as and when he has the time or he has the space, he'll go and spend some time with her. But she's saying
okay,
actually that's working for her really, really well because she's discovering that actually she doesn't respond well to a lot of structure. Some structure's good for her, like she needs that, but not like complete regimented. And I think that's probably been the source of why she's fallen out with a couple of her coaches.
yeah,
So it just doesn't click, and she's enjoying taking a bit more of a relaxed approach to her tennis. It's paying off because she's been playing quite well. Like she's had played 2 pretty good matches in Madrid, but that's just to say that's what's going on with Mark Petchey. Like he's going to be around, but on a part-time basis, and everyone
right.
involved seems to be kind of happy with that.
Yeah, and the thing is, I love that, and bringing it a little bit to what we talked about in the beginning about the Carlos Alcaraz documentary and how we approach covering tennis players. It's like everyone's different. Not everyone has to do the things the way it's supposed to be done, or the way we think it's supposed to be done. You know, everyone's allowed to have their own path, and this is her path. This is how she has chosen to go through being a professional tennis player. Let her do it. She's a Grand Slam champion. So I like to see her playing well and happy on court and happy with the situation that she has. And it's not on me or you to be like, well, actually, I think.
No, definitely not, because again, we've not done this ourselves. And
Yeah.
again, there's just people you click with, people you don't. It's the same with Sakkari. She's like, even if Tom Hill has limitations as a coach, they work well together, like personality wise. We had a little bit of that with when we had Abigail on the pod, of like,
Yeah.
she's there for moral support, if anything else, with a few of the Brits. And actually has that sees some benefits. Also, to anyone, by the way, if anyone listening to this sees anything online about Emma Raducanu fluking that Grand Slam, that is complete BS. I am not going to put an explicit tag on this podcast, but it is complete BS, and you should ignore that because you cannot fluke winning 7 matches in a row
No,
against top 100 players.
no, you cannot. And she came through qualifying. So
Yes, because you won 10 matches in a row. So, like, what more do you want? Like, that's really tough to do. So,
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much what's going on the women's side. You know, Madison Keys is doing well, you know, going through her matches and stuff. But a player who went out in the first round, very surprisingly, I think, at least for some people, and also will then bring us to our next topic, which is something I think maybe people don't realize what's going on, is what happens in the second week of these 2-week tournaments to the players who aren't playing. Are they just sitting at home? Are they training? Like, what are they doing? What are they doing, guys? But Naomi Osaka lost in her first round match, which was a little tough, I think, even for her. She posted to social media insinuating as such. And it's kind of like, you know, you saw her training in Paris really early. So I think people were maybe expecting, you know, a big run or whatever, but then she loses in the first round. And you kind of think, wow. So if you lose as a tennis player early in a 2-week tournament, which most of these masters now are 2-week tournaments, what do you do? Especially on a surface like clay, tennis in general, I think personally, benefits from rhythm. It benefits from playing consistently and, you know, maybe not, you know, obviously not every single day, but just having some sort of rhythm in your matches and play. And what do you do if in your first tournament on a surface you lose early? Naomi, with some other players that we're going to mention, took a wild card to a challenger. Or I guess, Nick, it's a WTA 125,
Yeah,
correct?
125K.
Yes. So I was looking for the name of it, and I apologize for my pronunciation. It's really bad,
We
but
don't speak French, guys.
you know, we just don't. But it's the WTA 125 Le Open, L'Open
Le Pen.
35 Malo,
Uh,
Samalo.
the
Yep,
American, yeah,
yep. We will,
pronunciation, yeah.
anyone who, oh my goodness. Okay, by the way, because I will 100% every single time take a correction. And the loveliest person on Instagram, they follow us. Their Instagram handle is Court Satisfaction, and they follow us on Instagram, and they're actually currently at the Madrid Open right now. I was going to maybe ask them if they could send in a voice memo, maybe for our next episode, to just tell us like what it was like. But they listened to the mini pod I did talking about the tournament in Portugal. And I'm not going to even try and pronounce it right now because it's much more complicated, but I didn't know how to pronounce the name. They were so nice to, first of all, not only listen to the podcast, thank you, but they sent me a little voice memo with the correct pronunciation. And I was like, thank you.
Why
So
did we have this
if
before?
I mean, please feel free if you guys know the correct pronunciations of stuff and we say it wrong, I will take it. I would rather pronounce things correctly than kind of botch it. But she took a wild card to that tournament, and I've been seeing this trend happening, Nick, where it's like in the second week of these Masters events, they're usually now scheduled either basically lower ranked tournaments, either 250s or challengers or WTA 125, 75s, all of that in these second weeks to give these players an opportunity to sort of get some match play. So, for example, FAA, who lost first round, he is also going to Portugal to play in the Estoril Challenger. And also Joao Fonseca, who lost yesterday to Tommy Paul. He got to the second round, but still, he clearly wants some match play.
And it's not that weird either, because I think we've talked about this before, where the same thing happens at Indian Wells with the Phoenix Challenger. Like,
Yes.
That's the second week, and you get some pretty big names showing up there. It's not every challenger. I don't think it really happens during Grand Slams.
No, yeah. That's the one thing it doesn't really happen, yeah.
But like now we're getting these 2-week 1000 events. We're going to see it more often with Madrid, maybe with Rome, depending like how people feel about being too close to the French. I'd be interested to see if they do it with the Canada-Cincinnati double, although I think because of the way that's scheduled, with it kind of running into each other, like in the middle of a week, I don't think people are going to do that with Canada. Maybe Cincinnati, but that relies on them potentially losing in the first round. But certainly with these early 2-weekers in the first half of the year, yeah, definitely have a look at that. See what challenges they end up facing. It'll be interesting to see if any clay court challenger regularly picks it up, because Estoril's not going to be a challenger next year. It's going back onto the main tour.
Yeah.
Kind of in the summer clay court swing, I think. So that's one thing to bear in mind. But definitely, I think there'll be some like smaller French clay court events that are probably going to make do with it. Like the St. Malo 125K is probably absolutely loving life right now. They've got Naomi Osaka.
Right. And that's also for you as an audience who are watching. If you're wondering, you're sort of like, oh my goodness, I would love to watch Naomi Osaka play right now. Or, I want to watch Joao Fonseca. If you're in Brazil, like all those things, they're playing next week. So you don't have to wait till Rome or anything like that. They're playing next week, and it's free to watch. We keep saying this. It's free to watch. You can watch all the WTA Challenger level tournaments on WTA Unlocked, and you can watch ATP Challenger tournaments on their website. They have like a stream that they do, and now you can watch it on Tennis TV. So it seems these streams are also going to be coming to Tennis Channel. I haven't yet watched the Tennis TV versions, but apparently on the Tennis TV versions, they're going to have sort of more camera angles and things like that. I'm guessing they will probably be on their free tier, which is T2, which you can watch for free in so many places. I'll leave all the links in the description, but just for fans who want to watch, their favorites when they're out early at a Masters, some of them are playing these tournaments, so check them.
And there's other reasons to, support those kind of challenges anyway. Bit of breaking news, I've actually now bought a ticket to go to the final of the Ilkley Challenger that's happening in June. So I'm going to go watch that. I'm in the area anyway. And I thought, I'm going to go do that. And that one tends to pick up some young up and comers. I was actually looking at this the other day, like, I wonder who I could potentially watch. This is like a massive tangent, but I wanted to share this with you, Anastasia. Like, if you went to Ilkley in 2016, you'd have seen a young Daniil Medvedev before his breakthrough. If you went to Ilkley in 2017, you'd have seen Alex de Minaur and Taylor Fritz, like baby de Minaur and baby Fritz. Jack Draper in 2018, like that's how far back you've got to go. Like they had David Goffin and Richard Gasquet last year. In 2018, you could have seen Anna Kalinskaya, Ons Jabeur, Linda Bencic, and Bianca Andreescu. And that was before a lot of them were breaking through, or as they were breaking
Right.
through. Just sort of reasons to kind of go to these events. Don't just wait to see if a big player signs up. Go because you never know who you're watching, whether who you're watching will become a big player.
Yeah.
That's kind of my kind of plug there. But yeah, and now you're up to speed with what's happening next week as well as we kind of wrap up the show. It's Madrid, St. Malo, and Estoril.
Yes, exactly. Those are such great points you made, Nick, because yeah, don't wait till, Andy Murray's showing up at a challenger near you. Go. You never know what baby player you're seeing now that you're going to be watching on TV win a Grand Slam. So definitely try it. And also because there's so many challenger level events, there is probably one near you. You might not think about, there is probably, I bet you, one near you. Just look it up. And you'll find some really high level tournaments that you can attend. Another plug for our Meet the Professionals episode, because they talked about that there as well. One
Speaking of
quick
challenges and up and
yes.
comers, do you want to mention what just happened in a challenger yesterday?
Yes. So yesterday, and full disclosure, I have not followed this tournament, but I just think it's really great, especially coming from an area that doesn't produce a lot of tennis players that you hear about in sort of the more sort of wider audience. But there's a challenger happening, actually two of them back to back, in Côte d'Ivoire, which is in Africa. And one of their local players has made it to the finals of the event, which he is the first male tennis player on the ATP from Africa to make it to the finals of a challenger event. And that is a big, big thing. He is a young up and comer. Again, apologies for mispronouncing his name because he doesn't yet have the little sound button on the ATP website, but hopefully, from this sort of run he's made, maybe we can get him to pronounce his name and we can put that on the ATP website. ATP, I hope you're listening. But from just reading it, and I will also put this in the show notes so you can see it. It's Eliakim Koulibaly. He is a 22-year-old from Abidjan in the Ivory Coast, and he is in the final of the Côte d'Ivoire 2 Challenger. And I think that's really great. I love to see when players come out of these countries that don't get as much representation on the ATP tour, and wishing him the best in the final. I'll actually be watching it. I will watch the final there. He's going to be playing against Aziz Goudag, who is the number 1 seed from Tunisia at this challenger. And yeah, it's going to be hopefully an interesting watch. And, I hope this, because again, especially for local audiences, it's exposure like this, it's a player like this that helps encourage the younger generation to maybe pick up a racket and play the sport.
Well said.
So that is the episode this week, guys. You might be thinking, wait a second, how are you leaving us without a player of the fortnight? It is the fortnight, and we're supposed to pick one technically this week, but
we have a slight problem, guys. Well, a couple of slight problems. 2 problems. One is that, full disclosure, we've not had time to watch a lot of tennis between the two of us these last couple of weeks. The other problem is a lot of the players who have been doing noteworthy runs are big players, well-known players. And so, our whole thing of we'll go see this person on a ground pass, and it's very hard to pick out someone that you definitely see on a ground pass and not on a stadium, that you know who they are. So yeah, that's kind of the challenge that we've had this week on both the men's side and the women's side, despite all the quotes chaos on the men's side. So
yeah,
that's the situation we've kind of found ourselves in with it. And also, it's difficult doing it in the middle or just sort of in the early rounds of a tournament where you haven't seen the end of the story yet. And that's also the challenge. Okay, well, what did they do? How do they impress? I could go with Uchijima, who beat Pagula, but I want to see, what she does in the 4th round now. So that's kind of where I'm at with picking my player of the fortnight.
Yeah. And, I think we talked about this early before we started recording, is we don't want to fake it. We don't want to just pick someone just to pick someone and fill the requirement. We want to actually make sure that this is someone that you you should go see on a ground pass. Like we want to tell their story and, help promote their tennis and them, and, give you a good reason why to go see them on ground pass. Just like you said, you want to see the end of that story. I could have picked the baby Cerundolo brother, but I haven't really seen the end of his story, really.
He's just lost to
But
Daniel
yeah,
Medvedev quite substantially.
and he just lost Daniel Medvedev. So maybe not this time, baby Cerundolo. Maybe on the next clay court tournament, you can show me something. If you show me something, then I'll make you the player of the fortnight. Okay?
I tell you what, you might have a candidate in a minute, because as we're recording this, Benjamin Bonzi's won the first set against Taylor Fritz, 6-4.
Clayler. What's happening, Clayler? This is his first event back from injury. He's been suffering this year with a little bit of an oblique, I think you call it, your oblique injury in his ab. So yeah. So no player of the fortnight for you this week, but we will be back. Maybe you'll get one during the mini pod, which is coming next week. Actually, looking at the date, Nick, I don't think we have a mini pod.
No, we don't. I've accidentally promised it and then realised, oh no, because A, that's when our Meet Professionals episode comes out, and B, I'm actually literally in the middle of nowhere when we're supposed to record it. Like, even if I brought my recording equipment with me, we wouldn't get internet. So
No.
if something significant happens in Madrid that is, we think we need to put something out about as a mini pod, Anastasia could cover it, I guess, because let's face it, I only just roll up here and turn on my camera and talk nonsense for an hour. Anastasia actually does all the hard work, so we literally wouldn't be here without her. So
We try.
how it's going to go.
It's a team effort.
So yeah, that's the situation. Is mini pod if needed, essentially.
Exactly.
Meet professionals worth listening for.
Yes, no, totally. So next week actually is a Meet the Professionals episode, and then we will be back with a full episode in the following week. Again, you know the drill. If you need any breaking news, we're on social media on all the platforms. So follow us there and you will get the news as it comes, all the fun stories and the things happening on tour. If you're listening to this podcast on podcast app of your choice, please give us a 5-star rating. Leave us a comment. We love that. Send us a voice memo of how to pronounce the challenger that's happening in France. That would be really, really great. If you could do that for me, that would be awesome. Otherwise, we will see you in a couple of weeks. Nick, have fun in the middle of nowhere, I guess. Bye, guys.